Hello people, how's it going? Scotty. So Angry Basterds has again made a response video. And of course, this time he's resorted to the typical nonsense. You know, it's this thing where he's lost the argument and now he's resorted to calling me a psychopath and a racist. Calling me a racist, why? Because I defend the United Kingdom Independence Party? That does not make me a racist. The reason why UKIP defend controlled immigration is not because of racism, it's because of what we call supply and demand. Nicola Sturgeon of the Scottish National Party couldn't understand this. Nor do a lot of people, unfortunately. So, here's the problem. It's all in relation to do with supply and demand. And let's say, for example, it was Nicola Sturgeon and her proposed plan. Remember how she stood in front of everybody in the election debate, for the general election debate, and she said, and she proposed to the United Kingdom that she would build 100,000 houses. Work this out. She said she would build 100,000 houses per year. Yet, more than 300,000 people come into this country per year. What's the problem with that? Well, again, it's just like what Nigel Farage said. It's a supply and demand problem. The issue is that when you have a lack of supply of something, let's say it's a lack of water, such as the Sahara Desert, because there's a lack of water, there's a higher demand. But if you have an abundance of something, if you have plenty of it in supply, there's a lower demand. It's no different to time. Time is the same principle. If you have, limited time, and let's say it's something to do with something on eBay, and a product that you like has limited time, there's a higher value. It's no different if, it's the other way around. Let's just say you've got plenty of time. There's lower value. Time itself has value. Depending on how much time you've got left. So, it's no different with regards to when it comes to demand for housing. And it's that relationship of supply and demand that dictates your housing costs. The reason why housing costs go up is because the higher the demand is, the higher the cost is going to be. In other words, if you only build 100,000 houses per year, you've got an excess of 200,000 people coming in per year. Of course, a certain percentage of the 300,000 would be families that would go into housing. However, it's not going to hide the fact you are still left with an excess percentage. Let's just say, for argument's sake, let's say it was 100,000 that comes into the country without housing. What that then means is, per year, that number that's left over will continue to grow every year. And that's a number without housing. And that number without housing means there's going to be a higher demand. And you've already got all those homeless people on a waiting list currently. Is it fair on them? No. But the point of the issue is the fact that that number continues to grow, therefore the demand for housing will grow stronger, because after all, the higher the number of people demanding for housing, and less housing there is, it means the higher the cost. That's why if you had a lack of water, there's a very high cost, because high prices in the market signifies scarcity. Whereas, lower prices would signify there's an abundance. That's why if you produce more, the costs of goods and services drive down. So, UKIP is not a racist party. It's just a party that takes a different strategy, that understands the economy. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. But, of course, that's another story. You call me a racist. That's the laugh of this century. How can you call someone like me a racist without even giving a reason for it? You can't even elaborate on the reason why I'm a racist. You can't even tell me why I'm a psychopath. It's the laugh of the century, that. The Soviet Union saw 5 million people purposely starved to death by Vladimir Lenin between 1921 to 1922. And then, from the 1930s, the early 1930s, we saw Joseph Stalin, who engineered the Holodomor, where 7 to 10 million people, 7 million in Ukraine, were starved to death. But of course, for me, the true definition of a psychopath is the type who lives in denial to the fact the Holodomor had happened. That's the true definition of a psychopath. Not me. Not me who stands against all of that. But the person who would deny what an horrific movement that socialist movement of the Soviet Union was. Another, well, we could say it's kind of psychotic. I like to call it an oxymoron. The type of people who call socialism libertarian. Libertarian socialism. What's the main argument you get from socialists? The main argument is the fact that, we need to control such and such because we can't have the economic freedom, because people will apparently become exploited, and this is why we need government regulations. And then they all contradict themselves and they talk about libertarian socialism, this delusional idea that socialism can exist without a government. Socialism is predicated on completely abolishing all means of private ownership, individual ownership. If you never had a government how do you then stop individuals doing their own thing? And if you are suggesting on stopping them, how then can you call that libertarian? You see, you don't understand this. In order to prevent something from happening, in order to prevent someone from having individual liberty and individual rights, you're going against the very meaning of liberty. So, how do you stop private ownership of land and private ownership of property, meaning business, etc.? How do you stop that without the use of force? You can't answer that question either, can you? No, you cannot. And you know, this is the reason why people like you are completely out of your mind. You're outrageously ignorant. Don't even bother calling me psychotic unless you've actually got something to back that up with. Okay? Don't even bother calling me psychotic. People like you, and I'm going to do a video on pricing, because people such as yourself are economically illiterate. You are. If I told you about a price ceiling or a price floor, you wouldn't even know what either of those are. You don't even understand price controls and why they are destructive to the economy. Why there's nothing more efficient than the free market price mechanism. The reason why the free market price mechanism is efficient is because prices provide information to the market of what is valuable and what is not, what is scarce and what is not scarce. It tells us our profits and our losses. It tells us so many things, valuable information. Most of all, it allows the producers to provide for the market, meaning the consumers, efficiently, to allocate resources efficiently. For example, consumers walk into a store, they buy the products that they want, and at the end of the month, a business owner can see what their most bought products are and what their least bought products are. This is telling the producer, this is what consumers want more of, and this is what they don't want. It's telling the business, and the consumers' buying trends is telling businesses, this is what we want you to produce more of. And if you do not provide us with that service, we will simply look elsewhere as a result of consumer choice. And we will go elsewhere and we will get what we want. And our competition will do it. Because competition is always seeking to get one better over the other. So competition keeps them in line. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of competition in the marketplace. But that's not what I'm getting at. The market then, because it knows what its most bought products are, the market knows what needs to be produced. It knows what its least bought products are. So then, is a business going to produce more of what is not being bought? No. Who in the right mind as a business owner would do that? They wouldn't do it. Why? What's the point producing more of what's not selling if it's going to run your business at a loss? not only is it going to run your business at a loss, you're going to waste valuable resources. And therefore, as a result of supply and demand, as a result of what prices is telling the market, they can tell what is valuable, what is not, what the consumers want and what they don't want. Therefore, they can efficiently allocate the resources to provide for the consumers, for the market. However, this was not the case under your socialism. Your socialism was a catastrophe because it introduced, just like it did in Chile in 1970 under Communist Allende when he fixed the prices of everything. What happens when you mess up the price mechanism? Well, in a market, the prices fluctuate, and it all depends on consumers' demand. If consumers' demand isn't there, the price of the produce falls, because nobody wants it. For example, if there's a high demand of something, the price goes up. However, this then gives the producer the incentive then to produce more of what's driven up in cost, because he wants lower costs to provide for his customers and to earn more money. So what he does to increase consumers' demand, he produces a lot more of what's basically in demand and what's shot up in price. And when you produce more of it, the cost gradually goes down because there's more of it to go around in supply. And that is what, through consumer demand, that is what creates the incentive for businesses to produce more of what the market wants. But what is so important? What is so important to understand of this is central planning, the alternative to the market, to capitalism, is this whole price controls and why they're so destructive. Why, for example, why you ended up with the food shortages in Venezuela. And it's from this small example. It's called a price ceiling. A price ceiling is where the government would set a maximum price, a maximum fixed price to something. Well, I'm not talking about a fixed price as in thingy, but a maximum price limit, so that the price can't go above this. And what the government does is it artificially lowers the cost of a said good in order to attempt to make it more affordable for the poor. What's the problem when you attempt to do this? The very problem is the very fact that you're not taking into consideration the costs to a business of how much it costs to produce. Okay? So, let's just take, for example, let's say, for example, you have a phone company producing phones. You have to take into consideration as a business how much it's going to cost you to produce that product. And then you have to take into consideration, after you've taken into consideration with regards to the costs of how much it's going to cost you to produce the product, as a business, in order to survive, you need to make a profit. In turn, that benefits the consumer, because then you're able to get more in order to, you know, provide for your customers. So a business's main aim then is to make a profit. So then they would have to sell the product at a higher cost than what it costs to produce the mobile phone. You understand? They have to sell it at a higher cost. Okay? So, what happens then when you set a price ceiling and you artificially lower the cost of, let's say it was the phone, let's say it was those phones, and you and the government set a price control, when it set a price ceiling, when it artificially lowers the cost of the goods. What would happen if the government lowered its price below the market value of how much it costs to produce, and the market's having to sell in order to make a profit? What it means is, because you've artificially lowered its cost, you're going to run the business at a loss, because the business has to produce more of them to sell. But what would be the point in producing more of a product if you're just going to be running at a loss? You're not going to make a profit. Where's the incentive for you to produce products if you're going to produce at a loss? Let's say, for example, you ran a business and you were, I don't know, some clothing company, clothing designer, and you made your own clothes. Where's your incentive as a business owner to then produce those clothes if the government's artificially lowered the cost, meaning it would cost you more to produce your clothes than what the government has set the price ceiling at? So in other words, you're going to be running at a loss. Do you not understand that? So what happens is, when the government sets the price ceiling and the cost is artificially dropped and lowered, consumers' demand goes up, demanding for more of the produce to be produced, but the company has lost the incentive to produce more, because he doesn't want to produce more of a product if he knows he's going to be running at a loss. Do you understand this? It destroys the incentives of businesses to produce more. And that is the very reason why you end up with shortages. That's precisely the very reason why Venezuela ended up with the shortages that it did. So all this silly nonsense you hear from people saying, oh, it was all a blockade from the United States of America, is all nonsense. That only serves to prove to you they don't even understand the very basics of pricing in the market. Common sense would tell you a business owner is not going to have an incentive to produce more of something if they know they're going to be running at a loss. That's a small example. And you see, whilst I provided you with a video filled with information to back up what I was saying, you came back and you called me a psychopath and a racist. Think about that. And let's see if you can come back with a response that's rational enough to even challenge me on the information I've provided. I would more than love to hear where this libertarian socialism is. Your idea of liberty under socialism. This liberty where you want to prevent individuals from how much they earn, how many employees a business owner can employ. You want to, restrict so much more. You basically remind me of someone. I don't know. In fact, you're past that level. It's you just don't know when to give up, do you? And it's embarrassing. I couldn't care less how many people hate me for spreading the truth. I don't. But one thing that the rational-minded people can see when they watch my videos, they can understand my common sense. And they can see I know what I'm talking about. Whereas with people such as yourself, you can't even come back with a rational response. You can't even refute what I've basically said, can you? Of course you can't. That's the reason why in the Soviet Union, when the Soviet central planners had mass-produced shoes in the late 1980s, there was massive queues of people lining up for shoes. Why? Because the Soviet Union had mass-produced what the market did not demand for. It did not match the needs and wants of the consumer. And that's why you ended up with the massive big long queues. And that's what you call wasting resources. And especially when you set the prices of something such as what the Soviet Union done with mass producing pelts. It was a prime example, because the reason why supply and demand and the price mechanism of a capitalist economy is so important is because when consumers' demand falls, the price automatically falls with it. That's telling the market valuable information that this is not what you produce more of. It's telling the market, avoid producing more of that, because at the end of the day, what's the point producing more of when you're going to waste resources and you're going to be running at a loss? There's no point producing something consumers don't want. Whereas you destroy the price mechanism, you fix the prices of something, just like the Soviet Union had done because of your socialism, you destroy that valuable information. And in doing so, you no longer have the information of your profits and losses. So that's what this is what it really all comes down to. I just thought I would throw this up quickly, but people like you don't understand anything. And if people were to draw a comparison between my videos that provide people with valuable information that teach them something to yourself, there's a colossal difference. They only have to go to your channel to see the contrasting difference between a socialist and a capitalist. Any rational-minded person who wants to learn will see the capitalist stands out. Now, I just want to thank yourself for being a troll and watching all my videos. Why? Because I recently went out and I got myself a new ring. It's titanium. I got myself a nice new ring for my left hand. And that was all thanks to my business on YouTube, providing people with valuable information. I also, as a result of that, got myself this book, How Capitalism Saved America. And what's so beautiful about getting these books from the money that viewers are basically giving to me through watching my videos, I'm then able to give them valuable information in return. So since they watch my videos, I'm able to learn more. And the more I learn, the more I'm able to provide my viewers with valuable information. In other words, I'm educating people. I'm giving people, you know, I'm giving people something of real value. You, on the other hand, I don't know about that one. I think the type of people who would probably watch your videos are, I don't know, maybe the type who just want to laugh at you. Talk to you later.